Our app is taking shape. Now I want to work on the admin section. We'll add authentication later in the course. We can already prepare the folder structure, the route structure, and the files here. So let's start by adding an index.view file for cases where we just enter /admin. Now in the admin section, I want to have a couple of other parts. So I'll create some subfolders. One is for a dynamic parameter, so that when we enter admin/5, for example, we load the post number 5. I simply want to do this so that we can view and edit it as an administrator. So here I'll add a new dynamic route with post ID so that it's clear that this is not the ID of the logged in admin or anything like that, but really just a post ID. And here I'll also have an index.view file in the folder. Now besides that, next to post ID, I want to have an auth folder. This folder will also have an index.view file, and here I want to show the sign up or sign in form so that we can create our new administrator or log in as one. And I want to add a third folder to the admin folder, the new post folder, which allows us to do just that. Load a new post, create a new post. So to populate all these files and folders, let's start with the index.view file directly in the admin folder. There I'll add my template and a div where I want to assign a class of admin page so that I can conveniently style the entire page. Now in there I want to have two sections. The first section will have a new post CSS class and should actually hold some button which says create post or something like that, and which then simply loads the page to create a new post. Of course, we could also use a Nuxt link here, but I want to route programmatically. I'll add a second class with the existing posts CSS class, so a second section, I mean, with a CSS class. And in here, I'll output a heading, existing posts, and below that, I want to output my post list so that I can show my list of posts just as we already do it in other places of the app. With that, I'll add my script section here. There I of course need to import post list. So import post list from add components /posts /post list. And then as before, add it to the components property in that view object. So here post list. Now we can use that component here in the template. And of course, we need some stylings here because we want to ensure that this page also looks nice. And for that, I again prepared some styles, which you can simply find attached to this video again. So here I just added these 3 CSS classes, which should ensure that this looks okay and all right. With that, if we save this and we go back to our application and click on admin, we indeed see our existing posts here. So that is looking neat again. We get this button, but this button isn't doing anything. It's also not looking beautifully, but we can take care about this later. But again, it's not doing anything. So let's now work on the new post component maybe. The new post component should allow us to, well, create a new post. So it should show a form that handles this. For that, I'll create a div which wraps the entire page, admin post page maybe, or admin new post page, whatever you like. The class name is up to you. And then here I want to have a section with my class new post form, just in case that we might have multiple sections on the page. And in there I want to create my form now. Now that form will of course be created by adding a normal form element. And just as we always do it in Vue apps, we won't submit a request through the action attribute here, but we want to handle this programmatically through Vue so that in the end the request is captured and we can send a behind the scenes HTTP request to do the authentication. So what this in the end means is that we need to create a couple of inputs here and then have buttons. I say buttons because I want to have a save button if we want to save the post, and I want to have a cancel button. Now, regarding the inputs, I want to have an input for the content, for the title, to enter the link to the thumbnail, and also to enter the author name. And then I want to have buttons for, as I said, saving and canceling. Now, I actually will create my own UI components for that, because that allows me to conveniently have pre-styled input fields and buttons. Therefore, in the components folder, I'll create a new UI folder, because these components in there will be purely for styling, essentially. They will wrap default HTML components so that we can apply our own default styles. And you can find these components attached to this video too. I'll just drag them into the UI folder. There's the app button component, and that again is following the Vue style guide to attach an app prefix to components where we basically set up base components to wrap HTML elements and use as base components in our application for basic elements like input elements and so on. And here we got a button in the app button component in our template, a normal HTML button, where we pass on any attributes or listeners that we might apply to our own custom component so that we can interact with our custom component just as with the default button, and we just forward any attributes we set and so on. And then we have a couple of default styles set up on the button here so that we can pass this button style property, which is a string, and which could simply be something like cancel to attach this cancel CSS class. And that is really all in the button, just wrapping the button, setting up some default styles, and allowing us to pick from pre-built styling combinations. The app control input component is a bit more complex. It's a div with a label that has a slot so that we can enter the label between the opening and closing tags of our custom component. And then it either renders a normal input if we set the control type property to input, or it renders a text area if we set it to text area. And then it simply attaches two-way binding to pass any values we pass to our custom component onto the wrapped component, and that it listens to the default input event and emits it, so that we basically build our own input control. And I cover this in my complete Vue.js guide if you want to learn more about this. With that, I got these two custom components, and I want to use them in the new post component now. There, in my forum, I want to use all these custom controls, and you can find these attached to this video too. So I copy that in, and here I use my control inputs with the default type of input, except for one case where I set it to text area. I have my labels between the opening and closing tags, and I have two buttons, a cancel button and a normal save button. And with that, my new post form should look good. The one thing that will not work is I can't reach it because I haven't connected the button on the index.vue file in the admin area yet. And also all the other methods I tried to call here, or the model which I tried to bind to edited post, that won't work because I prepared the code for you, but we haven't added the rest of this component yet. So let's add a script section here, and let's now simply add a data method here where we return a new object where we have edited post, which should be a JavaScript object where we have all these fields we're targeting: author, title, thumbnail link, and content. So here I'll add it here. Author is empty at the beginning, title is empty at the beginning, thumbnail link is empty at the beginning, an empty string. All these are empty strings, and the same for content. And these are the fields we're binding to from our custom form controls then. Now I also need two methods, onCancel and onSave here. This, however, just submits. So we will have to bind here on our form. So on the overall form element, I want to add the submit listener, which is triggered because we're adding a button of type submit here in our form. I actually then want to prevent the default, which would be to send a HTTP request. And I do this by adding the prevent modifier, a default Vue feature. And I will then call onSave. Now we just need to pass or add both methods. So here in my Vue component object, I'll add the methods key, and then I will call or will add onSave here, where I will basically save the post, something I'll add later, save the post. And then I'll also have an onCancel method here, where I want to navigate back, essentially. Now, this is my new post component. Now, let's tie them up by going to that when we click on the button in the index.view file. And that is actually something we can easily achieve by adding a click listener here and using the injected router, the normal view router, with $router push, and then it's /admin/new post, of course, because that is our URL, right? Admin/new post index. So we can now reach that post. To go back, if we cancel, I will also use this router in the onCancel method of the new post index.view file. As in all view components, we have to access injected properties with the this keyword on the view component instance. And then here I can also push to just /admin. Now what we can do in onSave for now is we can simply output this edited post where all our entered values should be stored. And with that, if we now go back and reload the page and click on Create Post, we get an error because our nice components we added, which we're using in the new post template, haven't been imported yet. Now that is of course something we should do. So I'll add imports here to app control input, which is the name of one of the components we created or we imported, from add components UI app control input. And the other one, which I also will add, is app button. So these are the two components I added. Now we need to add them as local components to this component, to this page here. So I'll add the components key here. And then in there, I'll add app control input and app button. And now these elements I'm using here in template should be known. So now if we reload this, we got a form. Maybe it's a bit too wide, but we'll take care about this. But what works is we can cancel and go back. And we can also enter anything here and click save. And then just output our object with all these keys here. So this is working. Now, what I want to do is I want to put this form into its own component though, because there is another place where we will also need this.